Hello, everybody. It's Scott from Gray 17. Today is February 22nd, 2023, which means this is the 30th anniversary of the airing of the Babylon 5 pilot movie, The Gathering. So we had to celebrate this amazing birthday of one of our favorite shows. So we have gathered, again, the League of Non-Aligned Podcasts. We have 7 different shows represented on this, and we do a deep dive into just why we love Babylon 5 and where we think Babylon 5 is going to go for the next 30 years. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you continue to join us and the other shows of the League as we continue to celebrate this amazing show. Happy birthday, Babylon 5.
You do? How nice. I should send you a card on your birthday.
You have transmissions holding.
Patch incoming signal. Full audio and video decode.
Purple files accessed.
What you are about to see has never been shown to anyone outside the Grey Council.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second gathering of the League of Non-Aligned Podcasts, which I think is what we decided to call ourselves last time. I am excited to have with us several different Babylon 5 shows who have been around for a few months to quite a few years. So I'm Scott, and with me is...
Jessi. I'm from the Gray 17 podcast. I am one of the newbies. I've been watching Gray 17. Jesus Christ. Babylon 5. So I didn't call it Babylon 9. I've been watching Babylon 5 for about 6 months now. I'm about halfway through season 2, and it's getting better every day. My opinion now versus the last time I saw you guys is completely different. So
yeah, what I failed to say when I tossed it over to Jessi is what we're going to do first in these introductions is talk a little bit about our first interactions with B5, whether it was 30 years ago today, because it's the 30th anniversary of The Gathering, or for some of you, it's only been a few months. And we have some newbies like Jessi on here, and we also have Brent from the Babylon 5 for the first time show. So we are going to be spoiler free for the first introductions. And then we will kick these guys out the airlock and we'll get into spoilers down the road. So, Jessi, great to have you. We'll go over to Mike next.
Yeah, this is Mike from the Gray Sector Pod, and trying to think. We're talking about the first time we watched, or we're not getting to that yet?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Let's just do that in the introductions. Go for it.
Yeah, so I watched The Gathering in my parents' bedroom because there were only 2 TVs in my house at that point. There was what we thought was a big TV, which I think was 32-inch CRT in the living room. And then my parents, I believe it was like a 12 or a 16-inch or something in their bedroom. And I had to ask permission to be able to have that TV for an hour. And I got to go, well, I guess in the case of The Gathering for 2 hours. But yeah, and that was the first time I watched when it was live. It was pretty exciting, crazy, and weird.
Next, we got Ryan.
Hello, this is Ryan Slawinski here from the Yum Yum podcast. And I first really kind of watched Babylon 5 when my parents got the first season DVD set. I had probably seen some of the other episodes on recorded off the television. There's one in season 2 that I can remember quite vividly seeing with all of the old ads and stuff. But it was through the DVDs that I really got a flavoring of B5 here in Australia. They released the DVDs very in a staggered manner. So I had season 1 by itself for 3 to 4 years. So I'm very familiar with what it's like to be left on a cliffhanger for a very long time. And overall, yeah, I'm a big fan of B5. My wife and I, we go through it episode by episode, like a lot of you people. And I'm excited to see talk about what's happening with B5 right now.
Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm with the Gray Sector podcast with Mike. And let's see, I first started watching Babylon 5. I was a bit of a Star Trek nerd in college, and I made the mistake of dissing this like sort of upstart sci-fi show I'd heard about, to my friend Jake, and he was like, no, that's a great show. You have to come watch it. He had a TV in his room. I did not in my freshman year. And so, that's where I went over and started every Thursday. I just kept coming back and he had to let me back in the room, and it was great. I was like blown away by this new sci-fi show. It was totally different from Star Trek, and I loved it.
Brent.
What's up?
What's up?
What are we doing?
What everyone else has been doing. You
And
are trouble, sir.
Oh, sorry. Just trying to bring a little taste of Babylon 5 for the first time here to the League of Non-Aligned podcast. My name is Brent. As I said, I'm from Babylon 5 for the first time, which means I, like my friend Jessi and Nicole, and who else was here? Who else?
It was Andrew. He's disappeared.
Andrew, he disappeared.
Yeah, he's got that quality Central Illinois internet.
Oh, yeah. I certainly know about that. That's why we don't podcast with people from there. Anyway, like them, I'm a newbie. We are getting really close to the end of season 2. We've been in this journey since about May of last year. And I like this. I will flat out tell you guys, I like the show. Although, to be frank, season 2 has been really rough for me so far. It's had its rough points. Sorry to the other newbies who aren't quite as far along as we are yet, but here's hoping the end of season 2 picks it up, because yeah.
I have been watching you guys react to season 2 and just shaking my head because I don't get it, but whatever.
Well, I mean, it's the difference, I think, between people who understand the entire show and people who are watching for the first time. And you guys are like, oh, this is so good, and this connects to that, and this connects to that. And we're like, yeah. So I don't know. You're like, you don't understand foreshadowing. I'm like, no, I understand foreshadowing. I just don't have a crystal ball to see what's foreshadowing and what's not.
Brent, it's not a clip show without the clips, okay? Just so you know, don't make that mistake ever again, or else the fans will never let it go.
Oh my gosh.
Never say it again.
The things that people choose to latch onto is hilarious to me. Absolutely hilarious. And look, so Jeff's my co-host. Of the two of us, Jeff is by far the more, shall we say, diplomatic of the two.
This is true.
I grew up in a blue collar hillbilly town in Kentucky. And let me tell you what, if you were up, you were getting busted on. That's how it works. And if you didn't come correct, like we're going to go at you, and we're not going to let you get away with stuff. And if you dig into something stupid, we're going to double down on it. And that's just the way we roll. And it's been fun. It's been fun. Jeff has banned me from ever commenting again on any of our videos. So
Ryan's trying to stop me from commenting on my videos, but I do it anyway.
Yeah, you have garbage takes on Star Trek Voyager and Picard. It's a double whammy there.
Nicole, you're up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole. I'm with the Gray 17 at Babylon 5 podcast. I am a newbie as well. So I've been watching Babylon 5 since our podcast started. The Gathering obviously was the first one that I've ever seen. But I'm not only new to Babylon 5, I'm new to sci-fi in general. So for me, this has been a really interesting experience, because going from The Gathering to now, it's like a complete 180. I'm the person on the podcast that like looks for the silver lining and always tries to be positive, and it wasn't that bad, and finds things that I could pick out that maybe were good in a crappy episode. So The first season was a lot of the crappy episodes, but I will say I am definitely a solid fan now. And even if I wasn't doing the podcast, I would still watch and still finish. And it's been really exciting to take this journey, especially as someone who isn't familiar with the sci-fi genre. And sometimes I feel like I'm talking out of my ass and I don't know what I'm referring to, but at the same time, there's been a couple things I have been right about, even if I get the red yarn out a lot. So there are some things though I have caught on to. But yeah, it's been a really fun experience. And I just want to also say thanks to all of you for being here, because I think this is one of the coolest and most exciting things about this community is all of us being able to come together and talk about something that we all have in common. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with B5 so far. And I'm excited to, go back in 2 years and listen to all of our Beyond the Rim and find out what I was right about and what I was wrong about.
Damn.
I'm Tim Callender. I am one of the co-hosts of the Babylon podcast. And I would like to say I was there at the dawn of the third age of mankind, except I couldn't find the listing on the local station. So I got that part of my B5 fandom bingo cards checked off immediately. I knew this new show that was coming out, and as big a Star Trek fan as I am, I was like, yeah, okay, something new. I'm interested. Didn't know who J. Michael Straczynski was at all. And then was talking with a friend of mine. It's like, oh yeah, this Babylon 5 pilot was on like a week ago. It's like, what? So I made damn sure that I caught Midnight on the Firing Line when that finally premiered. And I was hooked from the beginning. And as rough as that first season could be, I was thrilled to have another space-based show that wasn't Star Trek and was doing some very, very interesting storytelling. I, of course, eventually caught the pilot when it came back around again. And not only do I have the version that is included in the movie collection, but I've got a disc that one of our Babcast listeners burned that was a copy of that original airing with the Stuart Copeland soundtrack and a couple different scenes that from one to the other when TNT finally rolled back around and aired the pilot. I know we'll get digging into it here for a little bit, so I won't say much more than that, but I'm happy to be here too. And I thank you for the invite.
Favor.
Hi, I'm Jafar. I'm from the Who Are You? Babylon 5 Watchcast. You got close, Scott. It's fine.
I tried.
Honestly, I care a lot more about trying than I do getting it right. I am a lifelong Star Trek fan. My dad and my grandpa watched the original series as it was coming out, and that was a super fond memory of his childhood. And then I'm an 80s baby, so when Next Gen hit, that was like family TV night. So I grew up watching Star Trek. Every Wednesday we would watch Next Gen and then DS9 and then Voyager. Babylon 5 was the first kind of sci-fi show I ever watched on my own, independent of that. And so I have a lot of fond memories of it from that and finding it. I did not catch it on P10. I did not get a chance to view it until it came on TNT. And when TNT got the rights in what is probably the closest to a streaming media experience you could possibly have in the 90s, they aired an episode or two every day over the summer before it came out. And I was out of school, so I watched Babylon 5 in that order on TNT with like 2 episodes a day for an entire summer. Except for one episode that I missed, which I didn't notice until I did a watch through in 2019, 2020. I came back to it.
Summer.
Well, I am Summer Brooks. I'm the other co-host and producer for the Babylon podcast. The long storied history of how that podcast started is hilarious. It basically, short version is Tim said, "Hey, you wanna?" And I said, "Sure." And I actually got to see The Gathering on its first initial airing, and I remember being surprised to see that the score was composed by Stuart Copeland, because I was a huge fan of the original Equalizer TV show, which he also scored. And later, when I think it was sometime during season 2, I mean, I was surprised when Midnight on the Firing Line came on and the music was entirely different, but I really loved it. But sometime during season 2, I got a hold of the Laserdisc for The Gathering, Japanese import, which had the original print, the original cut, the original soundtrack. And I believe whomever I finally gave that to might have been the person who shared a digital version of that with Tim. I cannot confirm or deny that. But yeah, I made myself a copy of that before I sent the Laserdisc on to a new home, because my last 2 Laserdiscs died and I was pissed. But yeah, the Gathering changed my mind. I thought space opera was never going to be on TV again. Boy, was I wrong, and I was happy to be there for the start of the ride.
Hi, I'm Baz from A Dream Given Form podcast. I've been a fan of Babylon 5 basically since the start of season 3 when it was broadcast in the UK. So I was a big Star Trek fan, but there was something about Babylon 5 that just stuck with me. Maybe it was all the Lord of the Rings influences, maybe because the shadows were so freaking cool. I watched it all the way through to the end, got every episode on VHS. I literally spent hundreds and hundreds of quid on VHS tapes, and then I lapped up all the TV movies and Crusade as well. So I've got everything on DVD. I've watched Babylon 5 multiple times. I've had the absolute pleasure of talking to several cast members, and everyone involved in Babylon 5 has nothing but passion for the show. Talking to Walter Koenig, Pat Torrent, Marshall T, Peter Usick, it's been an absolute joy, and I've loved connecting with B5 fandom, whether it's on my podcast, Dream Inform, or with fans online like yourselves. And of course, my dream project now, I'm actually writing a book on the 30-year history of the show from McFarlane Publishing. So the manuscript is just about to be submitted right now. So it's a whole 95,000 words on the history, development, influence of the show, including some kind of interviews with the cast itself. So yeah, the development of Babylon 5, influence on genre television, long-form storytelling, the highs and lows as JMS attempted to revive the show. There's been so much to write about, and I'm really excited to share it with Babylon 5 fans everywhere.
And I'm Scott. I'm with the Gray 17 podcast. We've got our newbies and our first ones watching. We're right now in the very smack dab middle of season 2. And as Nicole and Jessi have already pointed out, it's been an interesting ride. For me, I was with Mike in terms of having 2 or 3 TVs in the house. They all had the little dials and stuff. And this new network of stations came out called PTEN, the Prime Time Entertainment Network. And there was one show on there that really excited me because of my nerdum, and that was Time Tracks. Because I grew up with my dad watching Quantum Leap, and I was like, ooh, it's Quantum Leap, but he's a cop. And so I was watching Time Tracks that came out a month before The Gathering did. So as I was watching Time Tracks, which only lasted 2 seasons, and that's a heartbreak, they were having the trailers for The Gathering. Now, I was a Star Trek kid, and I was already very excited, and I'm going to get some haters because I've already gotten haters for saying this a couple times, so it's okay. You can put it in the comments. It's okay. I was very excited. I was already watching Deep Space Nine, which came out in January of '93. I had been watching and waiting for DS9 to come out for almost a year. And so I was really excited because I already had DS9 had just started airing. I'm watching Time Tracks and Kung Fu, The Legend Continues. And this new Babylon 5 show's coming out. So I got to watch it from the beginning. I was, as Tim put it, I was there at the dawn of the third age of mankind 30 years ago today. I actually was able to figure it out on TV Guide. So good on me. But it's been a wonderful ride these past 30 years. I have spent many of my college years telling other friends that they should check this show out, either by passing at first pirated video discs, and then when the DVDs finally were around, passing out DVDs as well. And I was there from the initial start all the way through the trials and tribulations that were the end of season 4, and will we get a season 5, and the excitement of TNT grabbing it and watching it all over again on TNT, and so forth and so on, like many people. So it's been fun, and it's been really a whole new experience for me, and I'm sure for all of you too with your shows, is experiencing it again with a whole new community of people. Back in 30 years ago, I know some of you guys had your networks and your Usenets and everything, but I was a 10-year-old kid, so I didn't. And so I just watched it by myself. But it's been really fun enjoying this journey with people who have experienced it before and who haven't. And we've got some amazing stories. I've posted on our Twitter account a couple of times, if 10-year-old Scott knew what nearly 40-year-old Scott would be dealing with here, it'd be interesting. For example, we got a cease and desist order from Pornhub. That's something new. We can't sell Narnhub shirts anymore, I guess. We've gotten to interview some amazing cast members, and it's just you have to pinch yourself when you're doing this stuff, but it's been really fun. So as we've already discussed, it is the 30th anniversary, and we want to talk about a couple things here while we have this group together. What we're going to do first is later on, we're going to have a conversation about the relevancy of B5 now, and how is it still relevant? How does it hold up today? But I want to make sure our newbies get to have a moment to discuss that, because we're going to get deep into spoilers in a few minutes. So I want to give the newbies a chance to talk about that relevancy, and then we're going to have them go ahead and leave. And then also after they leave, we are going to talk about what's next for B5. We've got a special project that's going to be announced at San Diego Comic-Con in a few months. And of course, the reboot is still somewhat alive and kicking. So we'll have those conversations too. But let's go to the newbies first, and we'll go in reverse order. Nicole, talk to us about how Babylon 5 is relevant today, and you being somebody who just started watching it in July of last year.
Yeah, so it's amazing to me how relevant Babylon 5 is today. That's one of the things I think I like the best about the show, is that a lot of these themes and things that they experience and portray, they kind of push the envelope back then a little bit, like, for example, the episode with the union and then going on strike and all that. Those are still things that people deal with today, all sorts of different things and topics that have come up throughout the show are all things that we still deal with. We still deal with, problems with, what's the word I'm looking for? It's escaping me now, but it just really blows my mind how a show from all those years ago can tie into literally things that are happening today. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Like the people who hate the aliens. What are they called again?
Home Guard.
Home Guard. Yes. Home Guard, that whole thing, that is something that kind of hits a little too close to home, people wanting the only our kind, you know what I mean? Like, just little themes that they explore, which I believe in the 90s might have been taboo, or might have even been a little bit not seen on TV as often. These themes that they are not afraid to experience, So for me, it's been really cool to see that kind of juxtaposition to today and the things that we go through today. So I personally feel that Babylon 5 is really relevant. I think it holds up. And I think that it's kind of crazy that some of the things that they were discussing years and years ago that people struggle with and go through, we're still going through today, and we're still dealing with today. It's like kind of messed up, actually, So I think that's one of the things to me that really drew me in, is that writing and that those themes and these things that are relatable, because pretty much almost every episode, at least one person on our podcast can relate to something that one of the characters is going through, So I just think that's a really cool thing. And I really do think it is still relevant with, what's been going on in the times more recently. So yeah, I definitely think it's relevant.
Chuckle nugget, kinda.
So I have a theory, and it's that sci-fi in general, okay, it is the perfect genre for holding up a mirror to society in many of the same things, exactly what Nicole was just saying. There is no other genre that can do it as well as sci-fi. There's no other genre that you can take an issue of today, drop it into an alien foreign culture, so you're not like insulting anybody, and then showing people just how ugly you really are. And on the other side of that, giving you the hope that it can get better, or maybe even the roadmap of how to get there. And I suspect, and I've seen it somewhat so far during my journey of Babylon 5, where the issues that Babylon 5 talks about in many ways is still relevant today, exactly what Nicole was just saying, which could be fortunate, or maybe that's really unfortunate. Like, we haven't gotten over that in 30 years. But I believe that society is better when these kinds of shows are on TV. And this is exactly what we need out of our television and overall. So with Babylon 5 specifically, one of the things that I've heard said, and I think it's shaping up to be true, whereas with Star Trek, there's like, hey, here's what the perfect society eventually is going to look like. Babylon 5 is a little bit like, hey, here's the road for how we get there. This is us along the journey. We haven't arrived yet, but this is us getting there. And there is some grittiness to it. There is some dirtiness to it. And all of that's okay. And one of the things that Babylon 5 does different, though, and I love this because it's not Star Trek. And the subtitle to our show is, this is not a Star Trek podcast. And people think that we compare Babylon 5 to Star Trek a lot. Actually, what we're doing is we're contrasting Babylon 5 to Star Trek a lot. And one of the things that they do is they actually are taking issues like Home Guard and things like Psych Corps and people who look exactly like every single one of us here, because guess what? They are the humans, and showing just how awful they can be. But it's okay because they're way back on Earth, way over there, and we're here on Babylon 5, right? Like it's that same thing. But it's really one of those things I've come to love about Babylon 5. And I love that it's also not always just bonk over the head. Like, there is some subtlety that goes along with it. And sometimes you got to dig it out. And as a Star Trek podcaster, where you go in and try to dig out those truths, Babylon 5 is just rife with that kind of gold mine to be able to go in and look at it through that analytical lens that we get to.
Jessi.
Well, that was awesome. You just want me to go ahead and follow that, or?
I would like you to, yes.
Jessi, listen, I've listened to your show, and I'm telling you, you're going to knock everything that I just said. Like, mine's going to be a foul ball. You're going to hit it right in between the posts. Go ahead.
Thanks. Okay. So, I'll stay away from the bold political statements, because we all know how our listeners just really love when we get going on those crazy leftist viewpoints that some of you guys have. I absolutely think it's relevant today. Xenophobia is the main theory, the main thing that you get throughout mainly the first season, and then some into the second season, and I haven't seen the rest, so I won't speak for the rest of it. But it's definitely each episode I see parts that I'm like, wow, like that. Sometimes it's kind of discouraging, because they're dealing with this 30 years ago, and now, like a lot of you guys have said, it's just as relevant, if not more relevant today than it was when they were doing the show. So I 100% believe that this show is still relevant, and I'm sure, unfortunately, it probably will be in another 50, 60 years.
So I think at this point, first off, thank you to the three of you for chatting for a bit before we do kick you out. I want to thank you for joining us. And before we do kick you out, do you guys have anything you want to add? And Brent, if you want to give a plug to your show, and we'll put the link to all the shows down below too on our cast. So if you want to do a little shameless plug in before you head out.
Well, I'll go first. Babylon 5 for the first time. You guys come over. It's me and Jeff. We are both brand new people to Babylon 5. We've never seen it before. And what's possibly even more amazing, or maybe not, because you got a bunch of them over here too, Scott, is we're completely unspoiled. We have no idea what's coming down the pike, like none. And we're really doing our best to keep it that way for a 30-year-old show, especially when there's a lot of fans out there who are just so eager to be like, here's everything that happens. And we're like, stop. So we're going along that journey. And what we are doing is Jeff and I are two veteran Star Trek podcasters. And so what we've done, we have to own who we are. We can't pretend to be something we're not. So we're taking that analytical lens as Star Trek podcasters that we've gained, and we're applying that same lens to Babylon 5, trying to search it out and see what messages this show holds, and how is it doing it different. And I got to tell you something I am starting to see about our show. Just like Babylon 5 has this arc that it's going on, I totally believe our podcast, the show Babylon 5 for the first time, is on its own arc. And currently right now, we have gone Londo. I don't know where you guys are. I don't want to spoil it for y'all, but we've done what Londo has done. And we're currently waiting for Londo to come back. So
you and John both. John keeps waiting for Londo to come back.
Yeah, it's got to happen. But until, I think I'm just following his arc, honestly, is I think what's happening.
It's very sad. It's very sad.
Yes.
Jessi likes rubbing John's face in it every time we record. He's still evil, John. He's still evil.
Yeah. And I kind of like rubbing all of our listeners. No, I'm not. I'm just joking. It's an honest opinion of where we are in the middle of the show right now. And some people, do you know? Okay, I'm sorry. I cannot get over this. Somebody went out there and made a legitimate video that posts a conspiracy theory that Jeff and I had been hired to crap all over the show as to tank the pending reboot.
What? Are you kidding?
Well, you guys
me?
are lucky.
I want your kind of payday.
Yeah, right.
No one's paid me yet.
Right.
I'm just, hey, listen, I just want the kind of power and influence to be able to take a check to be able to tank something like that. It is just, that just gives you a clue of how, I'm just going to say passionate some fans are.
I love sci-fi fandom. I just love it.
Oh my God.
I've been called
it's the best and the worst.
How many names have we been called, Scott? Like I'm a cheerleader. I was a preppy cheerleader in high school that bullied all the nerds. I'm an angry lesbian.
You were, Jessi.
There's like so many. I've been called so many names just because I open my mouth, and I don't love everything about sci-fi all the time.
The best thing is that you and Nicole sound alike, which is just funny to me since you don't at all.
We don't at all.
They lump us and Emily all together. We're all just one, what they call the angry lesbian.
We're one being. Yeah.
But I will
the angry lesbian.
We've been called that several times in the last couple months.
Listen,
it's hilarious. Okay, sorry, that's funny.
I've been diagnosed with Tourette's, so that's fun. That's fun. But really, as much as we joke about the fandom, and there's some fun ones out there, I still say that the B5 fandom and the community that's around social media and everything is one of the nicest and most motivated communities I've ever seen. I'm looking at you, Star Wars people. You have some work to do.
No, I'm looking at you,
We're-
Star
for the
Trek people.
Trek
I'm looking at
people,
you,
yeah.
Star Trek people.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm very
As somebody who
embarrassed
also
by
has to
my
talk
people
about
that
Star
way.
Trek Discovery, let me tell you, they're not the most loving when you say yum yum's a silly line. They really don't like it when you say that to them, the Trekkies. They don't. But I like what Brent was saying about, you get to the point like with season 1, you're warming up. You go, okay, I know what my sci-fi TV standards are for those who aren't sci-fi TV. And the honeymoon phase of what that perception is eventually fades, and you realize what Babylon 5 itself is putting down. And then you, the viewer, if you're really wanting to, can play around with, okay, what makes this 90s sci-fi show different than the other big boys in the playground?
So Jessi and
was-
Nicole, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Tim,
no,
go
I was
ahead.
going to say, and in the 90s, there really was only one big boy in the playground,
Mhm.
and it was Star Trek.
Oh, it wasn't
they're
Space Above and Beyond? Oh.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I love that show. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for
Same.
season 2. I'm still waiting.
We all are.
Same here. Same here.
So I completely lost my train of thought. So there we go.
Star Trek was the big boy in town.
Oh yeah, that was the big boy in town, right? And so part of what drew me into B5 just conceptually was this notion that there was this other show that was willing to play in that playground, right? That somebody, let's even just set Straczynski and his hard work and all he did to bring that show to life and bring the people into it. The fact that Warner's, for whatever reason, decided to take a chance on this when there is Star Trek. And that was the thing, Straczynski talked about as he shopped this around. People say, this is great, but Star Trek's just going to eat its lunch, right? And so that Warner's not only took a chance on a show that wasn't Star Trek, they went ahead and greenlit the series based on a pilot that was frankly so-so.
Mhm.
That's nice.
And then through benign neglect allowed Straczynski and everybody involved in that show to make it what it is, so that it's an enduring series, it's an enduring story, and it's full of detail and links and foreshadowing and everything else that makes it rewatchable, makes it binge worthy, but also makes it great to go back to. And I'm not being spoilerific. That I think about like the Battlestar Galactica reboot, which I thought was phenomenal, as flawed as it was, but I don't have any interest to go back and watch it again because I feel like I got everything I was going to get out of that story. Babylon 5 for me, even having watched it a dozen times, 24 times, whatever it is, as much as it's shifted into that comfort food zone of viewing, there is still eventually, oh yeah, there's that. Right. And there's also a quality to it in terms of its tone and with that relevancy and for the newbies, this isn't really spoilerific. I think you can see where some of this is going, right? In terms of confronting xenophobia and confronting, the nationalism and all that has, and unfortunately why that's still relevant. But it also says we can still forge bonds. We can make connections. We can do better than what we are doing. And so it just continues for me to be a compelling story across all of that 30 years on. It's amazing that way.
And we're starting to get there now. I know a couple of our newbies are starting to rewatch season 1, and we had one Emily ask, because the Rangers just got introduced for us a few episodes ago. And Emily's like, where have I seen that costume before? I'm like, you saw it on the show. They've been hanging out in the background. You just didn't realize it. It's just little stuff that gets fed in. It's great.
Well, that's the thing, and we'll pass it over to the newbies. But the one thing about B5 that makes it stand out from a lot of the contemporaries, it's not alone. There's Twin Peaks as well, but it's a show that's asking, and you can tell it's asking you, give it a rewatch. Go back and look how we put all this stuff on the ground, and we've actually been building something over the course of the series. Even if it's little details, it's asking you, give us a watch again. Don't just, we watched it 1 week and then the next week, and then when it's done, we move on. It's a series from the 90s that said, hey, if you actually come back and watch it again, you'll get more out of it.
And
For
to
sure.
to that point, like there's something that Jeff and I have recently like realized and discovered, is because what people are wanting to do is they're wanting to go in and like when something happens, and I don't know if you guys have reached that spot here on Grey 17, but they're like, oh, remember way back when in The Gathering, when this little thing popped up and there was that newspaper there was the headline, and this is what it is here. And we're like Jeff and I are like, actually, you know what? We are going to do a second, like we're going to have Babylon 5 for the second time. And please don't spoil that, because that's a completely different experience.
True.
Like when we do know what all that is, and I come back and we revisit Technomages. Technomages is one of the coolest ideas I've seen in sci-fi in forever. And they wasted it. And they blew it, and they've done nothing with it. And the rest of that episode was just blah. And I promise you, because I know how this works, we're going to go back and watch that after knowing what all happened. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it right here's the realization. Knowing what happens with Londo, knowing the conversation he had with Londo back then, now I understand it, but I didn't understand it then. Having that realization to go back and go, oh my God, it was right here the whole time.
Jessi, I want you to talk to this because you texted the group today about a light bulb going off. Tell them.
I was driving. I'm at my parents' house, so you see a different background than you usually do. I was driving and I was listening to our podcast from 2 or 3 episodes ago, and they were talking about some dream sequence where the son had the hand coming out, and I literally was like, oh my God, you're the hand. And I sent it to the group, and I was like, shit, it's starting to click. So yeah, it's much more enjoyable to go back. I started watching The Gathering, and as a newbie, I fucking hated The Gathering, and I was like, this is the stupidest show I've ever seen. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm starting to question my life choices. And then as I went back and watched it the second time, I'm like, oh, this is a lot more enjoyable at this point than it was the first time. So yeah.
There's a hole in your mind. Okay, before we kick Brent, Jessi, and Nicole out, Nicole, you got anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just a couple little things to kind of piggyback off what Brent and Jessi were saying and some of the other people. The cool thing to me, I think, about the show is like we're kind of fed these little nuggets along the way. So like looking back at the first season, we had a lot of questions, right? And then some of those questions have been answered in the second season. But then I feel like JMS gives you another thing that you want to question. So I feel like it's like almost like a give and take, like a game. You know, he'll give us a little and then he'll take, and then he'll give us a little and then he'll make us question more. So it's satisfying and fulfilling to get those questions answered, but it's also frustrating because I want to know so much more, you know? So I think that really keeps me intrigued in the show and interested. And it's just quality, good writing. It's really good. You know, the stories have been really good. And one of the other really cool things I think is, as granted, we have been called names and nobody can tell us girls apart. I really do think the community and the fans and even you guys being here is a testament to how, you know, passionate and kind and embracing and empathetic that the fan base is. And I've witnessed other shows that just had straight up dicks for fans. You know what I mean? So it's really refreshing to see this community, because I feel like even especially as a newbie, I almost feel like at the beginning I was like a little bit of an imposter, you know, because I don't know shit about sci-fi. And there's a lot of tropes that people will talk about. And I've never seen an episode of Star Trek. I know I've only seen the movies with Chris Pine. I don't know anything about it. So for me, yeah, I definitely
DS9 is in your future, Nicole.
But I definitely have.
I got the perfect podcast to lead you through that whole series.
Oh yeah,
not have to go 800 episodes deep and give you a full overview of what's going on.
Right,
I got the perfect one. I got
perfect.
You. I got you.
But you know, I just think it's really cool that like people have been, you know, for the most part, we've got the jerks, but like for the most part, everyone's been really cool about like. Great. Embracing us and communicating and accepting kind of what we, you know, what we see, because here's the thing, we only know what we know. We don't know what's in the beyond. And I think that's really exciting for some people who know, because they're like, haha, just wait, or ooh, you have no clue, So it's almost like, I feel like it's kind of a gift to people who have seen it, because it's like showing them something through fresh eyes, if that makes sense. So I really value the opportunity of being able to do this, because I feel like not only is it exciting and a great experience for me, but Tim, you've seen Babylon 5 how many times? Maybe you'll hear me say something that you're like, dang, I never thought of that, or, and I think that for me, that's really cool. And we've had people tell us like that we've given them, a fresh perspective on things. And I really just love that aspect. So, yeah, I'll stop geeking out, but I just really, it's been such a great experience. And I really I'm so excited to see what happens and finalize the show, and then go back and rewatch everything and be like, wow, I'm a dumbass. I can't believe I thought that,
That's what I'm looking forward to the most.
I
is
bet.
when you guys go back and listen to Beyond the Rim and get really pissed at us. That's what I'm looking forward to the most. Like, all right, well, we'll go ahead and say goodbye to Jessi, Nicole, and Brent so we can talk some spoilers. But thank you guys so much. Again, if you want to check out Jessi and Nicole, they're on Gray 17 with me, Gray 17 podcast. Link is below, at least for our show. And then Brent is with Babylon 5 for the first time. Again, link is below if you're listening on our feed. And thanks, guys. It's been fun. I've said this last time, but this cannot be the last time we get together. I think maybe around San Diego Comic-Con. Maybe we'll see what happens
At San Diego.
Oh, I like that idea even more.
Let's go.
I like that idea even more. Okay,
I'm really excited for you all.
Newbies together to have our own panel. No spoilers.
Oh, hell
Fuck you
yes.
guys.
Let's do it.
I just want to say thank you to everybody here. You guys have been amazing. I know that we joke about, like Nicole said, I just want to mirror it real quick. We joke about all the haters that we have, but I have by far had 1,000 times more people be welcoming and accepting of us than we have of people being rude and nasty. So you guys included, this is the second time that we've met most of you, and you guys are awesome. Thank you for entertaining us and keeping us part of the whole program. So
yeah, I agree.
I'm so jealous of the journey you have ahead of you
Yes,
right now.
Really, I'm very excited for you for where it goes. And I just want to say, I think I've said it last time, but I'm excited for you. I have a hard time listening to these podcasts only because I just sit here going, you guys have no idea, right? And it's just like the frustration within me, and it's all me. It's nothing to do with you guys, right? Sure. It's just like I just get so wound up. I can't.
I'm the guy who has to keep a poker face while they're doing all this.
He does it all day long.
Right? Wow, that's amazing.
Jessi,
Yeah, I for one can't wait to hear what moment it was when you jumped up off the sofa and said, holy shit, no way.
I was in the car today.
Brent, what do you got?
Well, this is for Jessi and Nicole. When you guys hear stuff like that, does that like give you warm fuzzies like it does me? Because you're like, oh, I can't believe, I'm so excited to see you get there. And then there's also a little bit of you like, I'm going to slow roll this every bit I can.
Yeah. You have so much faith in me, and I'm so excited, but like at the same time, I hope that it gives me the joy that it gives to you guys. Cause like, I think I said this last time, the joy on Tim's face every single time he talks about it, just like it warms my cold, dark heart. So like, it just like, the fact that you guys sit and do a podcast about a show that's 30 years old is the only reason that I agreed to do this, because Scott said, no, there's people that will listen to us. And I didn't believe it. I was like, we're going to have 5 people that listen. And now we have thousands of people that listen to us and comment with us and, make fun of us with us and, for us. Like we have memes made about us. Like, it's just the coolest shit. Like the people that are nasty don't even, like, we joke, but like, it doesn't even faze us. Like we laugh about it and like, we make fun of them, but like, we don't, it's the love and the acceptance and the fact that you guys are just as excited for us, that makes it all worth it. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally agree.
Well said.
That's awesome. And we have a little side chat going, talking about a post-mortem podcast.
Oh,
yeah. You guys get through season 5. So that we'll have to get that in the books in about 2 years. But thank you guys. We're going to go ahead and eject you out the airlock because I know these first ones want to have some discussions about the 30th anniversary too. So thanks so much, guys, and we'll chat soon.
Bye, guys.
Hey, everyone, it's Scott. This is your spoiler warning. If you have not watched past where we are in Grey 17, which is about season 2.5, you should exit now because we are going to start talking about the entire 5-year run and beyond of Babylon 5. So thanks for joining us. If you don't want to get spoiled, and if you are okay with being spoiled, or if you've already watched the show hundreds of times like we have, here we go.
Hold on.
And if you have not watched past where those two shows are, you have 3, 2, 1. Sinclair's Valen and Sheridan's the president of the galaxy. Okay, here we go, guys.
Wow. Boom. No boom today, but definitely boom tomorrow.
That was quick.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to jump in. I just want to jump in and say, when they're talking about, oh yeah, like it's so relevant because of the home guard, and I'm sitting there going, again, you guys have no idea.
Right.
And here's the thing, and I think there's in the side chat it was mentioned, but one of the things that really fascinated me by the time the show is finished, once you get through the end of season 4 with the deconstruction of falling stars, right, is that one of the big differences from Star Trek is that Earth, humans, are ultimately the bad guys. And and the fact that JMS never, I mean, there are humans in the show who are good, who are our heroes, but Earth, the big notion of Earth, it's bad, and it cooks itself, and then and it's like basically a post-apocalyptic wasteland that the rest of the galaxy is trying to shepherd along secretly. That to me was, I mean, for all the real mind-breaking plot twists that show has, ultimately that's the one for me that's just like, wow, he never shifted that, he never soft pedaled it. That's where that went. Boom, the end. Really, that's really brave storytelling, I think.
Yeah, no,
not just one-off baddies either. Like in Star Trek, it's like, oh, well, there's the evil admiral who's a wild card, but it's not really. And we were talking about this on our podcast because we also look at modern Star Trek as well. And modern Star Trek actually wants to do the system is corrupt and broken, but the difference is Babylon, like JMS specifically, he has something to say about that. It's not just it's bad. Like Star Trek Picard is like, oh, boo, evil, but Babylon 5 has many things to say. Like we just did a recording of The Illusion of Truth, and that episode alone can sustain nearly 2 hours of conversation about these issues because the writer behind it actually has many points of view to dispense in just a singular episode, let alone 5 whole seasons and a bunch of movies and a spin-off series.
And he also I'm sorry, go ahead, Summer.
It's like, that's what I try to point out to people when they have trouble getting through season 1. I say, look at season 1 as a whole. It's feeding you breadcrumbs, getting you used to having a storytelling arc without a reset button being pressed at the end of every episode. You see people get injured and they're still hurt in the next 2 episodes. You see fallout from somebody who died. People are still grieving that person 2 episodes later, 3 episodes later. You have several people dealing with various mental issues and addictions that last throughout the entire series.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that's real life. That's not just humanity in the case of Babylon 5, but yeah, we aren't living in a utopia in the 2200s. We are fallible human beings, and we still got a long ways to go. We haven't figured it out yet.
I think we owe a bit of that to the very rigid annual story structure that the show adheres to. And I know I've been on team reboot change everything for forever, but that is something I hope the reboot doesn't change, to be perfectly honest, because having that sense of time passing in the story through the seasons, each being taking place over a exact calendar year.
Yes.
Is so well, except for the season 4 finale, I guess. Whatever. Anyways, that structure lends so much to enforcing that and allowing us to live in a space with these characters, because we as humans have a understanding of time and what can happen to a person in a year. And so to live that over effectively bi-weekly, 26-ish episodes a season, that's half of a year we get. So to have that kind of spread out over that course of time and to be rigid like that, I think is one of the things that really lends itself to that show making those decisions.
That's an excellent point. And I think the other thing that goes hand in hand with that is we see the characters make their choices. And this is why it's drama and not action adventure, is because all the characters are in situations where they have to make choices and then live with the ramifications of those choices. And as you point out, because it's this, January 1st to December 31st, and we all know I've made a choice last week. I can't go back and change that, right? Again, back to no reset button. And the thing that's great, and like Garibaldi's arc is the most obvious example, but he's sober in the middle of season 1, right? He falls off the wagon, but sobers up, tries to help Franklin. By the time season 5 comes along, he's back at it again with the drink, right? So there's this whole, and he makes that decision. He, everything that happens, even with what Bester does with him, which fucks with him and would fuck with anybody, but he still makes the choice. And then he still has to live with that and the ramifications of that. How that's why, to me, this is like one of the most realistic science fiction shows. As much as Star Trek, and I don't want to make this so much compare and contrast, but while Star Trek, they're great characters and you feel them as friends, but with the B5 characters, they feel like living people, and you can relate to the foibles and the mistakes and that knowledge of, oh man, yeah, I just made the deal with the devil, right? And how do I go back on that, right? Like Londo, he can't untangle himself from that, as hard as he tries.
Yeah, I want to rewind just real quick to, you mentioned deconstruction of Falling Stars, and I go to Brent's point, where B5 is going, it is giving us a pathway to where we can better ourselves rather than just saying we're going to be better. But I still love that at the end of everything in deconstruction, we as humans make it. We become the next level. It takes a long time, but that's the whole point, is we are building towards something hopeful. And that's what I miss about sci-fi nowadays for the most part is, I mean, how many times do I have to watch a zombie show where everyone dies? I don't watch zombie
shows.
Yeah, I like the idea that we it may take a long time. We're going to lose some people along the way, but we're going to get there. And I really do appreciate that too.
I personally like how there's a grit and cynicism in Babylon 5 as well, where yeah, we make it, but we become the ancient ones, right? We become the Vorlons in a way. And Babylon 5 is always going back to history, repeats itself. We're in a cyclical nature. We just go through this. And that's one of the things I actually like. Yes, it's all great to be sci-fi optimism and things of that nature, but I actually like how Babylon 5 most of the time says, yeah, you have to actually earn that. And humanity probably won't earn that for a long period of time. Historically speaking, we suck, and we probably would suck continuously. And I particularly like that. I just want to ask our Grey Sector guys, because I want to hear a bit more from Joe particularly about what you guys get out of Babylon 5 in terms of this relevancy, because I like listening to your podcast where you guys have a definite comedy lean to how you guys break things down. A lot of they wear funny hats in the background, which is my favorite thing ever. It's my favorite thing ever, but I'm just curious of what you guys think of Babylon 5 when it comes to its relevancy, its legacy, and where it stands.
Well, I find myself agreeing with you. I like the way that Babylon 5 takes on issues in a realistic manner. Other science fiction series that other people have talked about in this podcast have tend to be more utopian, and Babylon 5, like we just watched the one about the Markab plague, and it's just scary. Like, this is exactly how people reacted to the pandemic. Exactly.
And how they reacted to the AIDS epidemic. I mean, that's the thing that's frightening about it.
We talked about that. Yeah.
It's past, and it's predictive, and it's, I like that sort of, realistic, addressing of, the actual problems that humanity is facing, will face, and that we haven't solved yet. And that's sort of what science fiction is about, trying to solve the problems. That's if you go in and say, well, everything's perfect, we've solved all the major issues, then what is there really to talk about?
Yeah, there's fun abstract ethical questions to talk about, which is what TNG does for 7 seasons, right? But yeah, going back to earlier what Tim said, and we talked about this in one of our episodes, I don't remember which one, in season 1, the difference between a game changer and a cliffhanger, which I think Lonnie Diane Rich is the one who came up with this. Sarah's the one that mentioned it in that particular episode, whichever the hell episode it was. But and the perfect example being the best of both worlds is your classic cliffhanger, right? Like you set up all this stuff and there's all this drama and you go to the edge and then Riker says fire and the question is, oh, what's going to happen? And the problem with cliffhangers, right, is that everything goes back to where it was pretty much. There really isn't a lot of change. That is the definition of every episode of TNG, right? Our fun characters that don't really change. They reset every episode. I don't even know what year it is in TNG in any season. It doesn't matter. It's never mentioned. It never comes up. It's like barely ever addressed, right? The concept of passage of time, whether we're in season 7 or season 1, it doesn't matter in TNG, right? Or in most Star Trek, right? There isn't a plot arc. Versus a game changer is, Londo making a deal with Morden at the end of season 1, Londo making a deal with Morden in The Coming of Shadows, and Veer saying, don't do this, right? You're going to lead us to war. And Londo going, I have to do it, even though he really doesn't, right? He makes the choice to do it. Right. And then things change. Everything changes. Londo's fucking jacket changes, right? Like everything
just got there.
Yeah,
nothing's the same anymore.
Nothing's the same anymore, right? Like Londo has a much better looking tailored jacket through most of seasons 2, 3, and 4, right?
But in purple, he was stunning. Come on.
Yeah, dark, evil. Like Londo goes from like lawful neutral-ish in the beginning of season 1 to like chaotic evil by season 2, episode 9, right? Like he's chaotic evil. Like he isn't.
He doesn't. That's the thing. I mean,
he doesn't want to be
that whole thing,
right?
Well, yeah. Right, but that's it. But he follows. He's, even when he tries to get himself off that path, the hooks are in too deep, and all it takes is Morden in the shadows to poison Adira.
Yep.
And then he's back to the whole place. I don't care. Let it all burn.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And to your point, Mike, about game changers, the thing is that Babylon 5 has game changers. It seems like every episode, right? Yeah. Londo makes the deal, right? Jakar takes dust to try to exact his revenge, and then has basically the religious the scales
epiphany
at Damascus kind of thing is his epiphany. Sheridan confronts Kosh to say, look, we're tired of just being your pawns. You need to do something. And Kosh recognizes, he knows what the cost is, right? And does it. That's a game changer when Kosh is off the board all of a sudden, right?
And
the game changer.
The show knows how to do game changers on the character level. See, it's easy enough to look at it at all these big things, but like one of my favorite episodes is when Franklin confronts himself, and that's like a big thing. He has to, not just shadow dancing, but walkabout is the start of that, right? But I like, he has to make the choice to actually listen to his internal struggles and actually confront them and move on and take accountability. But what we keep circling around to is this realism, and I think for many people, like I would imagine maybe for people like Nicole or people who are the outside of the sci-fi genre, there is a distancing element from how geeky and nerdy, but also inhuman it can be. I can never recommend TNG to anyone who hasn't already given up their lives to Star Trek, because you have to ask them, watch 50 to 60 episodes to hopefully get good ones. And most of the characters are these people who kind of represent people, but there's something else. And what I like about B5 is how deeply human it is. And that's also what I liked about Space Above and Beyond. It was also a show about people, sad people, but people nonetheless. And that's why I mentioned Franklin. I actually like Franklin as a character. A lot of newbies don't like Franklin as a character because he's not nice. He's not the nice doctor man. He's not Beverly Crusher. He's an asshole. He's selfish, but he's also flawed and arrogant. And all of those things are juxtapositions to all the good things. And that's what we love about Londo. Londo's a funny guy, and he can be a good dude sometimes, but also he's a nationalist. He wants to rule the world and the galaxy because of all of these ideas that, if you just said his ideas are make such and such great again, that would repel most people. But you have to have a season or two of him being a loser, being a guy that you feel sorry for, even though all of those things are in The Gathering from the very beginning. That's what I love about The Gathering is, even though it's corny, has pacing problems, a lot of these character things, from Sinclair being a guy who wants to be the good leader, but also wants to die, to Jakar being this mischievous man who wants to have all these plans, but also somebody who is still bitter about having been a slave. All of that's in The Gathering. All of that is in this TV movie from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
The thing about Londo that I always found the most interesting is he is inarguably the worst person in the show. Like, he's straight up commits genocide. Like, he is a terrible person. But he is also the best at being a friend on the show in a lot of ways. He's very good at relating to people on a very interpersonal, singular level.
Yeah.
Like when it is the two people interacting, he does a lot of very small things for a lot of people, and they are very good gestures as a friend. And it's something that endears you to him in a lot of ways. It just makes the knife turn even more when he's launching asteroids at fucking Nars.
He even makes a friend of his worst enemy.
Yes. Yes. And I love that scene. But we're about ready to record our discussion of acts of sacrifice. And even though Londo has literally killed thousands of people already,
hundreds of thousands,
he's sitting. Well, we're not there yet, but he's sitting there in the bar just waiting for Garibaldi to show up, and the bartender has to tell him it's time to go. I'm like, oh, Londo's alone.
Yeah, but he deserves it. That's the funny thing. That's the thing that makes it worth it, is he deserves to be alone because the show, even though we, the audience, may like him, the show says it's wrong. This is wrong. And that's why something like his ending is beautiful, because even though he's made all of this personal growth and we've followed it across 5 seasons, his actions cannot be forgiven in a certain way from a show's moralistic standpoint. You can't have him just ride off into the sunset. You can't have him enter a dimension and then everyone gives a eulogy saying, oh, he wore killer boots, he's so awesome, like they do with Georgiou in Star Trek Discovery. You can't do that, because
there is that when you think about Sleeping in Light, and they're all doing the toasts,
and
Veer
make me cry.
I know I'm already starting to get verklempt, and Veer says basically, I know he did a lot of bad stuff, but I miss him. And that's what's really fascinating about Babylon 5 through all of this. And I think when Veer tells, when Londo sets foot on that path and sends Veer to go find Morden to make the attack at Vragesh, and Veer's telling him, don't do it. He's telling him not because necessarily you're going to start a war. It's that you are going to lose friends. You are going to lose people who care about you, because these, like you said, these are the decisions that, that scene in I want to say it's The Coming of Shadows. I can't forgive me. The episode escapes me, but it is with the mass drivers, and Londo comes back to the station to call the thing, and he meets Garibaldi at the meeting room, and the tension between them is so palpable, right? It's amazing. It's just incredible. And I know what we were trying to talk about is the relevance of B5. And, at first when we talked about this being the theme, I'm thinking of the political things, which shockingly are more relevant. I remember watching all the stuff with Night Watch in the 90s going, well, I get it. I know what he's trying to say, but I'm so glad we don't have that now. And then like 4 years ago, I'm like going, holy crap, it's starting.
It feels, I think I said it in chat, it feels more relevant in the last 5 years than it did, say, I mean, we can all have our opinions on George W. Bush, but in 2006 or 2008 or 2010, we didn't feel like this.
Yes, right, exactly.
We didn't feel this was relevant.
But I want to say this. Hold on,
speak for yourself.
let me finish this one thought, because I think what I'm hearing though is we're talking about this, the relevancy that still remains in Babylon 5 are these compelling three-dimensional characters with whom we can all find greatness within and deep flaws within.
And
even
that's everything.
Delenn,
that's the whole show. Every character, every race, every plot point. The Vorlons are saving us, but only if you stay in line. Humans are the heroes, but they're also the fucking worst. Like, it's everything.
Right.
Everything has a dichotomy in Babylon 5.
Lanier is the patient. He's the patient right-hand man.
But he's an incel, yeah.
But he's right. Yes, no, that perfect. That's exactly it. And to that,
and that's one of the relevant things is I know a lot of people, first-time viewers, one of our good friends, the Last Best Babylon 5 podcast, really don't like Lanier the incel. And personally, I'm finding it rather interesting to watch something like that be in a modern lens, because I think a lot more shows now critique the type of character Lanier is. They drill down on that a lot more. Whether you find it is well done is not what I'm getting at, but that type of commentary about this particular nice guy character was not something that I was at all familiar with when watching shows in that time period, especially science fiction shows. And so, yeah, a lot of people don't like where Lanier goes, but I find that interesting to look at now. And there's just so many elements of B5 like that, where from a modern lens, from relevancy standpoint of looking at serialized shows and prestige dramas, there's just so many character types here that rely on you also knowing what the standard of that genre is. Like I said, Dr. Franklin, you think of like the doctor character man, and yet he's not that. And I think that's a part of the joy, is they're not that. Like Sheridan, he's Mr. Smiley, happy-go-lucky captain man, but he's more than that. And I think that is one of the things that keeps it relevant, is just they present you with an idea of all of these characters, and then they tell you, actually, perhaps they're not like that. Not everyone is who they appear to be.
And not everyone's one-dimensional, right? Yeah, as you were saying, right? Like each character has the pros and the cons, the things that we love about them, the things that we hate about them. Yes, Londo and Jakar have a really interesting plot arc, sort of like two planets rotating around each other throughout the whole 5 seasons. But every other character has, well, except maybe Ivanova, she's kind of perfect. But like every other character has, I say this as being extremely gay, but Ivanova is really kind of a perfect character. But like every other character has their pluses, their minuses, their amazingness, and their drawbacks, right? Franklin is sanctimonious and prissy and full of himself and arrogant because he's brilliant, but he's brilliant and he saves lives, and he
has morals.
Yes, he has morals, which he will beat you over the head with, right? Yeah, absolutely, right? Like it's and so many other characters, they're three-dimensional in a way that a lot of characters in sci-fi are not, right? That's what I would say.
Yeah, when it comes to the political stuff of it, I do remember being younger and, having a background with a Polish family, just nodding along, going, with all the Night Watch stuff and all of that. I'm like, yeah. Seen this, been there. And even though younger, I looked at the armbands and I went, nah, okay. A little
That's
on
a
the
bit
nose
much.
there.
Yeah, a
But
bit much,
then-
right? Joe and I,
then
we were recording.
Recent
we were just saying
recent
this.
times proved
Yeah.
otherwise. Recent
Yeah, we were
times
just
proved
we
otherwise.
were just saying that seems over that heavy-handed. That's a little bit.
But
It's
yeah, at
over
the time,
line.
back in the 90s, yeah.
It felt a bit silly, right? But
Remember
Yeah,
though,
there was-
Not anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
there was-
anymore. But also rewinding back a little bit, and JMS dealt with this shit. He had a father who had a Nazi uniform in a glass case hanging on the wall in their house, and he realized JMS didn't realize this was a huge thing because he was just growing up with it until he brought a Jewish friend home, and the Jewish friend said, "I'm not coming back to your house." So
Right.
yeah, it's over the top.
Wow.
But yeah, read his book.
Yeah, we need to
Yeah,
read the
his,
book, Jack.
Coming
his
Superman.
autobiography
Read
is
it.
actually
Yeah.
really, really good.
But
It's
that's the thing. But that's the thing about fascism. It can creep up, it can loom, it can slowly bleed its way in. But once it's there, all the subtlety is out the window. It's right up front. It's telling you what it is, and people either accept it, fight it, or just stick their head in the sand and pretend it isn't there. And that's one of the things about Babylon 5 is you spend basically 4 seasons watching most of the characters grit their teeth and go, I don't like it. And sometimes they fight, sometimes they don't. One of my favorite things about Bester as a character is actually our crew, a part of their job is to talk to an SS officer, basically. Like they just sit there and go, yeah, I'm talking to a Nazi. That's just how my job is. And that's just one of the things that the show says, yeah, that happens. Okay.
Yeah, there was an anecdote on the JMS forums. JMS himself posted that I think it was an aide, or it might have been them themselves, but said that Rove and Cheney were huge fans of the show, and they wanted to let him know how much they loved the show. And he said he thought to himself, I didn't mean it as a blueprint, guys.
That kind of reminds me, and I'm going to
Yeah,
get
that's
myself
crazy.
in trouble.
That's crazy.
It
never
reminds me
heard
of
that before.
the
Wow.
certain folks on the Facebook chats and stuff now who are like, well, I just hope the reboot won't be woke. I'm like, did you ever watch Babylon 5?
Yeah, did you watch the
Let's not-
original?
yeah.
Hello.
Well, one of the things that's really striking about that is that what JMS portrayed was the banality of evil, right? That when Night Watch comes in, it isn't mustache twirling guys going, yeah, ha, ha, you'll all do what I want. Now it's like, look, you're already walking around the station, Zach, keeping an eye on stuff, right? All we're asking you to do is to tell us as well as your boss, and you'll get an extra $50 in your paycheck.
And you know, cops are already kind of a screwed up system. So why don't you just keep doing what you're doing, but with just a little bit more intolerance in it, okay? Just a little bit, okay?
Right, and they ratchet that up until again, Zach is like, he starts to go, oh, there's something really wrong. And then they're like, again, back to this point, that's where they're beating him on the hammer, but it isn't at the beginning. They're like, look, Zach, here's the thing. It's right and wrong. Do you want to be on the side of right or be on the side of wrong? And at that point, they've already twisted the notion of what is right and wrong to mean you're either with us or against us.
They rewrote the dictionary, yeah.
Right, right. And the whole thing with Julie Mustaine, when she comes to the station, right? We don't have homeless. It's like, and Sheridan's like, you can't talk your way out of the problem. And her whole thing is, well, look, you've got to change how you talk about the problem before you can really address the problem. And it's like, again, 30 years on, now it's like, yeah, like JMS said, it wasn't meant to be a blueprint, but here we are. And that's, and again, that's the banality of evil.
So guys, we can talk about how amazing this show is for a while, and I hope we continue to talk about it.
7-8 years.
I mean, yeah, we've individually at least recorded 100 hours a pop or something on it. So if not getting
much
there,
more.
So
I do want to, because we're running close on time here, and I do want to talk about what's next for Babylon 5. And we've talked the reboot to death. And as of last week with JMS's Patreon post, if you're on his Patreon, reboot ain't dead, but I think we don't have much more to talk about. But I would love to talk to you guys about the secret project that's in the can. I have been trying to drag information out from certain cast members, and they are sworn to secrecy. But I would love to hear from you guys what you think or what you hope we get to hear about here come July.
Okay,
Lost
so I have
Tales
to ask
radio
this,
drama.
Scott. I have
I'm
to
thinking
ask
the
you,
same thing.
which cast members have you talked to?
I
Because
have
there's the
talked.
clue right there.
Well, it's all the surviving cast. We know that.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why we know that is because Claudia Christian may have released a picture she wasn't supposed to that had
for
all
her.
of the surviving cast together in 2021 hanging out. So Bill Mumy, Peter, Claudia, Bruce, Patricia, they were all there.
Well, now
No
that's
Tracy
interesting,
Scoggins?
because if Lanier is in the picture, because see, I was under the impression that it was going to be after, but if Lanier is in the picture, wouldn't that have to put it in the time frame of the telepath war?
Unless we actually get the end of the character assassination that was Lanier at the end of the series. I'm just saying. But
you think it's going to be a continuation of the series? They're all so old. Like, how do you go? You can't. It can't be that. You know, Sheridan's really old.
Here's my guess, and it's just a
They're
guess.
all really old.
I have no inside information. I wish I did. My guess is you look at like what Big Finish is doing for Doctor Who, and you've already said this. I think it's audio drama. I think it is a scripted story with the returning cast, and they sat around a table in 2021 with microphones and they read a script, which would be fun as hell.
And I think it will. I agree with that, but I also think it will be as canon and continuity as any of the TNT standalone films are, which is to say,
or the Lost Tales,
kind of, or the Lost ish, exactly,
continuity ish.
That's one interview I wish I could have gotten. The real story from Yvonne Navarro about what happened to the novelization.
Oh God.
She was contracted to write that JMS threw out that never happened.
Some of those novels are crazy though. Like some of that shit is I
asked her in person at a con in Tucson, and keeping in mind that woman trains in Krav Maga, when she got the look in her eyes, it said, "I like you, but never ask me that again." I'm like, okay.
There's a pain there.
Oh no, that wasn't pain. That was pure hatred. That was,
oh yeah,
don't ask me that or I will break your arm.
I keep forgetting about this secret project, honestly, and maybe I'm just cold and cynical because of the later parts of B5. I'm not a Crusade fan. I don't like any of the movies particularly, and I really didn't like the Lost Tales. So yeah, if it's an audio thing, my biggest thing is I just hope it's not embarrassing. That's the thing I would really hope. I just hope it's not cringy and embarrassing, because that's how I feel about some of the later parts of B5. Like, look, I like the idea, like I like the sentiment behind the Lost Tales, but I'm afraid of watching it for the podcast. Like, I'm afraid that that's our final discussion on this podcast will be the Lost Tales, because it will make me bummed out. And I just don't want whatever this cast reunion thing to be something that's a bummer.
I think that it won't be enough to be a bummer. I am expecting 3 15 to 20-minute stories, just like Lost Tales is set up, where it will just be something new and there won't be enough of it to make a difference in anything. Whether or not it's canon won't matter, because at that point we'll probably know if a reboot's going to happen or not. Even if it doesn't, it'll just be something to be a little bit more in celebration of what was, much more so than it. I don't think it's going to be any kind of like, oh, well, this was a thing the entire time. Like, I don't expect any kind of dramatic plot movement at all. It'll just be honestly, it'll probably be about the characters seeing each other after a long time.
You know, I think you're right, but I'll add one little piece to that. I truly think this is going to be JMS's goodbye to this universe. I think as not only is he potentially going to do a reboot, whatever with that, I mean, he's said what he wants to say about this version of Babylon 5 regardless, but I think he's very, I don't know the best term, but he recognizes the people we have lost along the way, and he has said before it hurts him that he was not able to work with some of these people again. So I think he's potentially wrote something that is, this is how I want to end this. This is how I want to say goodbye to these characters, much like Sleeping in the Light already did.
Yeah.
But I think I agree with you. It's not going to be like earth shattering, but it's going to be a nice goodbye.
I think it's going to feel a lot like the Citadel DLC from Mass Effect 3,
which is awesome, by the way.
It's one of the best parts of that game, which is
it is.
Not
I like Mass Effect 3. I will say it now.
Yeah, you like Star Trek Picard, so that's not a shock.
Just season 3. I just like season 3, which you all
It's
haven't
only
seen
been
yet.
one episode.
I've seen 6.
Oh no, someone
special.
gets screeners, which I gotta ask you about.
I have a way.
Okay.
And it's a legal way. I want to point that out.
Well, we'll have to have another conversation.
Tim, we need to. Tim, I have seen the first 6 episodes. It is the next generation's undiscovered country.
I don't believe you, and I will never believe you.
Okay.
That's,
I've
been told that Star Trek Picard's been good before, and it was alive. So
I never said Star Trek Picard was good. I never
There
said
are
that before,
a couple
though, so.
episodes in the first season, in the first half of the first season, that aren't terrible.
Hold on, guys. Stop. We need to have a whole other podcast about that, and I would really love to because I have opinions.
Tim, Blake and I are doing after show. You are welcome to join us sometime.
Oh, yeah, let me know. Okay, we'll take this off the thing.
So,
yes.
Okay, anybody else? What do you think? Anyone disagree? I think I'm on the audiobook train. Anyone else disagree?
So yeah, The Secret Project, I'm hoping for a TV movie that features a surviving cast. I suspect it's documentary like DS9's What We Left Behind, but I hope there's one final tale in the original Babylon 5 universe before the reboot. Without, can't share too much, but recent Patreon updates suggest there is still some hope for the reboot. I think it's going to happen in some form, because if it was a definite no, the studios would have said so by now. That's why I'm kind of holding out hope.
Audio drama makes the most
it's gotta be
sense.
an audio drama,
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about that until you mentioned it. But yeah, I agree. I think that's the most likely.
Well,
the other big
there
theory
are some
is
people who were wondering, because JMS was scrounging around for, was it the CGI from the original show? They were like, hey, do you guys have the files for this? I need this for something. And people were like, well, what was that for then? So I think that's one of the reasons people want it to be something more than just an audio thing.
Well, and I will say on his Patreon, he has been digging out a lot of old stills, like behind the scenes pictures and stuff. And the other theory out there is it's a documentary, much like they just did with DS9. But I don't think so, just because the way he's worded it. And again, a lot of this is from the Patreon, so I'm being careful because I want people to actually pay the man instead of me telling you what he said. The way he words it, it sounds like it was a production. It wasn't them sitting in front of a camera talking about them as actors. So I don't think it's a documentary.
Well, to be clear, though, a documentary is a production. I mean, that does take
good documentary.
It's just the language he uses.
Theatrical production.
It implies that it's something more than a
that it's theatrical. It's not.
It's a return of the B5. They're doing a new album. They're going to have a bunch of new songs for us all. They've got everyone in for it, every remaining person. Robin Atkin Downs, let him sing out a beat called Remember Byron. Why not? Let's just go hog wild. Full musical.
Is there still any movement on possibly releasing the series on Blu-ray? Because there is a huge difference if you watch the episodes that are on Tubi now and compare them to what was on HBO Max. Oh my God, the difference is
I saw you tweet that out, Summer, and I wonder your internet connection, because I have a big 4K screen. I've been watching Tubi. It's not bad. I don't see a difference.
It's also not widescreen.
Yeah,
it wasn't widescreen on HBO Max. It was on mine. HBO Max.
It was on mine.
Then you had HBO Max set to stretch. The whole point of the remasters was it was the standard format because they didn't want to stretch out the FX. So on HBO Max, it was standard
it was standard for the CGI scenes, but the live scenes for me were full width.
That's a setting on your TV. That's not.
Yeah, I was
Look,
confused. I thought
as
they
a person
recorded.
without HBO Max or Tubi, I'm just happy to have my little DVDs. If they gave us a Blu-ray, wouldn't that be a magical thing? But I've given up any hope on Warner Brothers giving any more of a shit about B5. I'm surprised we got a remaster in the first place. That was
Hey,
I'm
genuinely a
surprised
shock.
he was on there.
My
at all.
laser disc of The Gathering was better quality than the DVD that I ended up.
Yeah, and JMS
Yeah.
pointed out why that is, because the DVDs we got were a copy of a copy of a copy. It was they actually took the laser disc that you have, and that was PAL format, and then they converted to VHS, and then they took that convert to the DVDs. So that's why they look like crap.
Well, it's a good thing it's such a great show story-wise.
Yeah.
No, but I mean that
also
in all
Laserdisc is
yeah.
analog,
Right?
not digital. So that plays into it too.
It does. But yeah, no, I mean, I need to play with your TV, Summer. Not that I know where you are, but I need to play with your TV because your HBO Max
Is that a
not set
euphemism
correctly.
for something?
Can I fiddle
it's
with
not.
the TV's knobs? Yeah.
No, my HBO Max comes in clearer than any other.
So
streaming
there
services
is some
I have.
credence to what you're saying, Summer. I have it all on Vudu. I purchased the remaster before it was put on HBO Max.
Uh-huh.
And I have been watching it there, switched over to HBO Max, and then I've switched back. And I do feel like the quality is a little bit worse. I'm also watching it on a very nice 4K TV that's got a lot of upscaling built into it. I think part of it is just the HBO Max app is better
That could be.
at it than
Except from a UI perspective, the HBO Max app is a fucking train wreck, dumpster fire.
compared to
When you play the thing, it plays nice. Yes.
Seriously,
They're
if you
Disney
compare
Plus.
HBO Max to AMC Plus, HBO Max is like the best thing.
Paramount Plus. That app.
No,
is
no,
the
no.
worst.
AMC Plus. If you have more than 12 items on your watch list, it can't scroll down.
So guys, we were nerding out. One thing I thought of that I wanted to ask you all, because Tim brought it up with Deconstruction of Falling Stars, which is an episode for me, I think doesn't get the love it deserves because I'm a Twilight Zone fan and it feels like I'm watching the Twilight Zone for an hour.
Outer Limits.
Outer Limits too, same idea.
Yeah.
I used to watch that in TNT, the original. So what are some of your favorite episodes?
Oh, that's easy. I like And All My Dreams Torn Asunder in season 5.
That's a good
I
one.
love the episodes where it's almost like it's a tragedy, but it's not a full train wreck, where they're leading to be a train wreck. And that's one of my favorites for that. It's just Londo's fucked, but right before he gets properly screwed over. Love that episode. I also wish that Mira's husband directed more episodes. He's one of the best visual directors of the show, and he only did one, and it's such a tragedy. Season 5 gets shit on a lot, but actually some of my favorite episodes are in season 5. I also like the very long night of Londo Malari.
London
That's
Malari,
also one of my favorites.
Such a good
That's
episode.
an excellent one.
The
I'm
Day of the
a
Dead one's real good too.
Oh, I love Day of the Dead.
Oh,
Neil
geez.
Gaiman.
I
Don't
love
do-
Day
no,
of the
nope,
Dead.
nope,
Tim
nope,
and
nope,
I will
nope,
argue
nope,
about
nope.
that for years.
But it had Dodger.
Justice for Dodger. She just wanted to get laid. I'm dropping that episode in like 2 hours. She just wanted to get laid.
Hey, we interviewed Marie Marshall and found out that she and Jerry Doyle had actually had a relationship prior to that.
Harry
So that
Doyle
was
definitely fucks. I'm sure.
yeah. I personally love season
That's
5.
shocking to me, actually.
What's that?
That they had a relationship. They have so little chemistry.
That's sexy.
He has a nice butt.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of season 5, as flawed as it is, because one of the things I like, and this to me is where Babylon 5 differs from everything else. Season 5 showed what happens after Happily Ever After. Right. Even in JMS's original conception for the show, it was going to end with the establishment of the Interstellar Alliance and this brand new world. Right. And it's only through losing his notes in a hotel that a maid threw away that he's got to now scramble and make this whole other story. And the fact is, as disjointed as it sometimes is, it showed that happily ever after isn't happily ever after. There are problems. And to all my dreams torn asunder, I love that scene where Sheridan is in the council chambers and he's talking about, damn you for asking this and damn me for agreeing to it. Right? Because he finds himself now hoisted on his own petard of this moral good that they want to base the alliance on. And he realizes this is where the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law exists. And, you know, and he finds himself in a sense out of his depth. I think there's a lot to recommend season 5.
Okay, getting out of season 5, y'all season 5 fans, fuck season 5. The
Come
coming
on,
Season 5 has
before-
Byron.
before
Remember
Mother
Byron.
before
Remember
the-
Byron.
They're going to be great comedy, Mike. They'll be
Yeah,
great.
they are. They're going to be great pod. It's going to make great pod. Season 2, The Coming of Shadows, is just one of the most like consequential episodes, possibly the most consequential episode in the whole series, because it starts a war. It doesn't pull away. It just drives over the cliff. It goes crazy, right? And that's the point at which we realize really, 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 this is not Star Trek.
Yeah, and my newbies just watched it like 3 weeks ago, and they blew their minds.
I was going to say their heads
does.
probably exploded, right? I remember watching it. We recorded it quite a while back. It's going to drop in a couple months or whatever because we're super slow. But yeah, like your head explodes. Like I remember watching that 30 years ago, or 29 years ago, and my head just exploding because it was like, but wait, you can't go to war. That means things will be different next episode, right? I wasn't paying attention. I was 14 or whatever. So
yeah, Londo can't be damned. You can't damn him, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
he's
so
a
you want
fun
to talk
guy.
about great episodes? Won a fucking Hugo Award. That's a great episode.
That is a great
See,
episode. Mainly though, because it sets up the Fall of Night, which is the actual greatest episode in season 2.
Yeah,
Long Twilight Struggle is pretty magnificent. I often raise that if you want the like what I would consider the best of the best, the Long Twilight Struggle's up there, but just personal favorites. There are just some others that just fly out there.
I mean, I'm a sucker for a time travel story. I always have been. I always will be. And Babylon Squared and War Without End Part 1 and 2 is the best 3-parter in any TV show in American television history.
I'd agree with that.
Crazy.
You know,
crazy 3-parter.
How well it was done. Yeah.
And here's the other thing.
To do part 1, 2.5 years before you do part 2. It's still like, I mean, I know we just watched it a couple I don't know if that episode's out. We recorded that episode a couple weeks ago for us, and this episode's, and it's just like, it just blows my mind still how concise it is.
Well, that's the benefit of having one too. And that's what the benefit of having a main writer who's writing and has a vision for it all, right? My problem with so much time travel stories is that it just basically is a reset button. And I'm looking at you, Voyager, with A Year of Hell. As much as people go, oh my God, A Year of Hell. It's like, it doesn't matter. In the end, Ryan. It doesn't matter.
Year of Hell's a really good Twilight Zone episode.
But it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah,
the thing
Voyager
with
doesn't matter.
The thing with the thing with Babylon Squared and War Without End is that it matters. And the fact that it's the only time travel story is also the thing that makes it matter, right? It loops back in on itself, but it all, as much as it's where it begins, and there's great lines in it, and we even see the end, sort of, but we don't have any context for it, which also makes it great, you know. So there's a lot going for it, but it is a testament to, you know, the double-edged sword of JMS being the prime writer on that show, is that we get this kind of stuff. But I think it's the other thing that sort of unfortunately pushes against it becoming a franchise, right? Is that it is very much reliant upon a singular vision. And that's where I'm curious about this reboot, because I can't see JMS at this stage of his life and his career wanting to be a showrunner that also churns out 110 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to see him more recent times have to collaborate with others, you got Sense8, and that's a whole can of worms in itself. Who hasn't said some of their favorite episodes? I'm curious what other people's kind of go-tos are.
Yeah, it varies for me, but I think for season 2, In the Shadow of Zahadum and Confessions and Lamentations, those two episodes have elements in them that echo throughout the rest of the entire series. And they're little tiny breadcrumbs, but when you look at them harder, because In the Shadow of Zahadum reflects in everything that Morden does to Sheridan at the end of season 3. Confessions and Lamentations starts the rumor mill. Was that something that the shadows may have influenced in the spread? Was that really a dormant virus that came
Was
back?
it a Volon thing? Yeah.
And that planet dying leads to Sheridan being able to destroy that jump gate to give them a win over the shadows. And that reflects farther down with him trying to pull everybody together to fight the shadows. And season 3, I mean, how can you not do Messages from Earth, Point of No Return, Severed Dreams, and Ceremonies of Light and Dark all together? I mean, that in itself is a novel.
Yeah, and with Confessions and Lamentations, it's one of the things that follows through in what JMS says about Babylon 5, the rise and fall of civilizations. It's the first time we see in the show a whole civilization fall. We've seen in other episodes previous, like ancient civilizations that have torn themselves apart, but this is one where here's 45 minutes of this alien race that's been in the background for 2 whole seasons, and now they're gone forever. They're not coming back.
We got a hint of it with Deathwalker, with her race, her planet going away, and then all of a sudden,
an infection as well with the bioweapons.
It's here, right in your face. These characters who you've seen in the council chamber, wandering around in the Zocalo, they're gone now. They're dead skis.
Also, it has just one of the most depressing endings to an episode of Babylon 5 with just Franklin at the bar. No one, like, people just don't care, and nothing changes and just walks off. That's Babylon 5 for you right there.
You guys have named a lot of lore episodes, which is what you should. But I also, there's not many of them, but I love the little bottle episodes too. One of the ones that always stands out to me is Passing Through Gethsemane. That is just an amazingly acted episode, an amazing gut punch episode. And it really doesn't matter when you continue to watch the show, but it matters. You know what I mean? Just shows.
I
like
mean,
that.
it's a lot of foreshadowing for Jakar, really. More than anyone else, but
at least it's following through on things as well from the Quality of Mercy 2 seasons previous. Like, hey, remember that weird idea we chucked out and did nothing with? Well, here's an episode where we do everything with that idea we didn't do before. But it's also the thing that makes Babylon 5 cool. It actually has not contempt or distance from real life human religion. It actually says real life human religions exist. They'll probably still exist in the future. Guess what? Catholics,
all of them, and then some.
There.
Which is interesting,
many more.
coming from JMS, who was a part of a religious cult and now is an atheist. So
and also went to Catholic school, the worst place to go.
True. I actually got to talk to Brad Dourif about. I'd interviewed him about an indie horror movie he had done, but I also got to ask him a couple of questions about Passing Through Gethsemane. So that was kind of fun.
I would like to say. I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Talk to Joe. I've talked enough. I was going to add.
Well, I don't know who has said and who hasn't. So somebody talk.
Well, no, the other when you're talking about bottle episodes, the core is mother, the core is father.
Oh man,
that is a good one, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another one where the ending is pure Babylon 5.
Season 5, Mike.
Yeah.
I know.
Right.
Fuck off.
Right. No, so I want to say one of my favorites, and this was also the mind blower for me, is Interludes and Examinations.
Yeah.
Because after a whole bunch of heavy episodes, this looked like it was supposed to be just one where you take a breath. And then while everything's ratcheting up with the Shadow War, right, it just, with the title, Interludes and Examinations, that says, okay, we're just going to take a moment. We're going to think about some stuff. We're just going to take a break. And it ends up being the death of Kosh. And
Right,
it's fucking mind-blowing at that point,
I'm
right?
sorry, son.
There's a bit
Yeah,
of JMS in the season guides that they put out, but right before season 5 came out, they put out those 5 season guide books. And in the little bit about that episode, he's all like, I purposefully named this episode something benign to lure people into a false sense of security.
Yeah, it works. And it works. Oh, one of the other episodes that I think's interesting is And Now for a Word, because it's one of the first B5 episodes that goes like weird with the format, and we'll get other ones like the one where Sheridan gets interrogated for a whole episode into sections in real time. But And Now for a Word is just, what happens if we could tell a normal Babylon 5 story, but through a completely different lens? And I remember as a kid thinking, oh, you can do that? Babylon 5 can do that? Because you get used to the Babylon 5 structure. And then this episode comes along and says, hey, baby, we can do it differently now. And I'm just in there going, what? You can't know.
I remember
I
Joe,
view
Sarah, and
that
I,
episode,
yeah, we all thought it was going to be terrible, right, Joe? I remember when we're like, oh God, this one's a horrible episode. And then we all watched it and we're like, this is fucking really good.
Yeah, this is it's brilliant parody of
it's
of
so
Fox News. It's great.
Before there was a Fox News.
Yeah,
it
was.
Or just news in general. We talked
Yeah,
about it.
news in general, but
Cynthia Talkman, we have our version here in Australia.
Her name.
She's just everywhere.
That's
like
right.
that type of person is everywhere.
Yeah.
Joe, did you
That's
ever give
good.
your big episode?
Joe, what do you like? Yeah, I know Joe has opinions, so
Well, Fall of Night's my favorite episode.
Yeah.
Just period.
okay, yeah.
Quite honestly,
It's-
it's because it's got all sorts of lore elements. It's got tension, and if you've been
And
watching the
Keffa.
series, who I'm not
And
familiar with that
Keffa.
character. I don't know who that
Joe,
character is.
yeah. Joe doesn't know who
We call
Keffer
him
is.
WK in the office down here. Yeah.
I'm looking for the
I think you
newbies
guys are
watching
making
him
that
die.
up. There's no one named that character. I'm sure. I've watched the show many times. But no, it's a great episode. It's sort of self-contained, but it also has links to the bigger story. So
I'll throw out 3 more that I put together whenever I want to get a good cry, and of course, everyone loves the last one. But Objects in Motion, Objects in Rest, and Sleeping in Light. I just watch all 3 of those together as a goodbye to the show when I've binged it, and they hit hard.
Sleeping in Light's so sad. I just don't.
But it's so good.
It's
is,
it's the greatest series finale ever filmed, and I will die on that hill.
Yep,
absolutely.
I think I might agree. Yeah,
It
I mean,
ties up.
So to be clear, my husband, who hates Babylon 5, thinks it is one of the best written series finales ever. Like it's just so well done.
I cry every single. I must have watched that episode at least 150 times, and I cry every damn time.
No, it always hits. It never fails to hit. I even think about it and I start like, oh yeah, gosh, right. And for the every day for the rest of her life, Delenn watched the sun come up. Oh my God, stop! And there's second chances even for people like us. Oh my God, but you guys were the best.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal.
The Fall of Night and Sleeping in Light also makes me want to ask this question, since we all watched the show before and some of us are now going through it as content to watch it. But I just want to know, just briefly from each one of you, who's that character that you found yourself surprised that you like? Like for me, when I thought of some of this, Zach Allen is one of my favorite characters. He's in my top 5 characters, and I would never have said that on my first watch or 2, but on this watch, I love Zach. He's one of my favorites, and that's a surprise to me. Who's that character that you found yourself surprised that you liked as much as you have?
On rewatch, Talia's really grew on me this last rewatch for sure. Someone, and especially knowing everything that happens, and how it all goes down. It's just kind of like very dismissive. Like she shows up, it's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be terrible.
Realizing how much sarcasm drips from every sentence that Talon utters was
Talon.
Just
The
every
great Marshall
line,
Teague. God, I love
every line is just dripping with. It's like, while all replies are answers, not all answers. While all answers are replies, not all replies are answers. I'm like, yo.
with Talia, because she's not a favorite of mine, and I've also tried to like her a lot, but I am just curious of, like, what was that thing that held you back previously, and how did it overcome it on this watch for you, or make her more of a standout character? Because I've wanted to like Talia, but I'm in season 4 now, and it's all Lita town, and I fucking love Lita, so it's hard to be like, oh yeah, and Talia too.
A lot of it was just being kind of dismissive because of the character arc. And she gets done dirty, for sure. And so just like maybe it's reserving attachment was just like, I know what's going to happen. I shouldn't like this character because I know she's not going to be around. But just the raw amount of shit she has to deal with, like she is treated so friendly and so terribly. And maybe it's because of my transition to a more office job.
Lawrence DiTilio really treats Talia badly. Let's put it that way. Like
I wondered if
it's
what is it, the test that Kosh put her through with the VCR guy.
Yeah.
I wondered if that was his way of double checking. Maybe Kosh already knew at that point what Psycor had done, bearing the personality.
That was a trap door in there in case they wanted to bring her back.
Yeah, we talked about
to
that
dissect
one.
her instead.
Yeah.
I will say, that actress, Andrea Thompson, she gives a really great performance that I didn't appreciate in the past. So that's something that's really changed on my watching of it. It's also interesting because I'm familiar with her from NYPD Blue and Quantum Leap, where she plays like really strong-willed characters, and Talia by design is having to not be that. Yet that's the arc. Like the intended arc is for her to break free, and she doesn't get to because they weren't giving the actress any work, and she was, got better work, and so she is interesting though.
I'll add one other one in there, and we're only again halfway through season 2, so most of the main characters I love we haven't gotten to yet, and most of the main characters I don't like we haven't gotten to yet. But I was really, really shocked and impressed how much my newbies were so pissed off when Takashima did not come back from the firing line.
Really?
They loved her.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
She was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and they were so pissed. Jessi almost quit the damn show.
Wow.
When she found out that Takashima was gone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but have you told her what Takashima's arc was supposed to be?
I have not, because we haven't gotten to Divided Loyalties. When we get to Divided Loyalties, I will tell them what the original plan was. Because if I tell them that Takashima is going to be a sleeper, then they will think, okay, who's a sleeper now? I don't want them thinking that.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you going to discuss the slightly different telepath path that was supposed to be in season 5?
When we get to season 5, I got 2 years, man.
Remember Byron.
My favorite character on the rewatch, because I originally watched this show starting in season 2. I was not introduced to original Natoth until like years later, like on like scattered reruns, and I've found like I love original Natoth so much in the first season that every episode she's in, I'm just like, oh yay, it's Natoth. This episode's automatically good. Right. Whatever's happening, she's in it. This episode is going to be great.
The only reason we lost her was
that one episode where she and Veer are playing that little video game was hilarious.
Yes.
Don't give away the homeworld.
But that's not actually original.
That's Kodath.
That's
Kodath.
That was the original.
It's actually Kodath.
Yeah? That's the Narn who found her way out in an airlock.
Right
she's
before
the
she
one
got
that threw
spaced.
the guy across the bar because he hit on her. But for me, Natoth, you can't go past just the iconic line read of Deathwalker, and then just shit out of her with a wrench.
Can you imagine if the actor who played her in season 2 tried to make that line work? Deathwalker.
it's hard.
Mary
First
Mary
season
Kay
of
Adams,
Toth is-
yeah.
The thing
Mary
about
Kay
first
Adams
is good.
first season of Toth is even underneath all of the makeup, she's just pure sex. I'm just like, fuck, this lady fucks.
She
She
sits
kicks
there
ass.
waiting for Jacquard to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah. As
Badass.
Julie said in our interview, right? The original plot arc that JMS had and told her was that she's going to become the ambassador, right?
Yeah,
Like
Mhm.
she's
Talon's
taken
arc,
over.
yeah.
Which that's another great, and again, it's from my objects one I was talking about. Or maybe it was sleeping. I can't remember now. It's been a while since I watched. But seeing the new generation, Talon up there, it's
Objects in
oh,
motion
what
when
could
they
have
leave
been.
the station. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Objects in motion. That's what it was.
And number
Yeah.
one, Marjorie Monahan standing there, Veer standing there, and it is just, it echoes again from those first season shots where it's Sinclair and Garibaldi and Ivanova standing there in the observation dome window, and the name of the place is Babylon 5, right? And it gives a great sense, and a show that really is all about change. It does let us know that there is still, while the series is ending, there's still a continuation, which is just, again, amazing. And I'm listening to all you talk about, favorite characters, surprising characters, and I'm trying to reflect on it. And I have to say, it almost is a cliche, but for me, they're all they're all of a piece. I don't know that I can pick one that was surprising. If anybody, it might be Bester. And I think the thing that was most surprising about Bester, Summer and I did a calculation for as long as Shadow is that character casts across the thing. He's only in like 12 episodes.
Yeah.
And most of those are actually in season 5.
Yeah.
I think there was William Shatner had a talk show called William Shatner Raw. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was on a cable thing somewhere.
Yeah.
And he's interviewing Walter Koenig. And Koenig has this dual bobblehead, right? And it's a Chekhov and a Bester back to back with big bobble.
I want that.
And basically, Shatner's asking him about this, and she said that Chekhov is the character that allowed him, that made him famous enough to be able to play the character that he really enjoyed playing, right? And I think I said this to him when we interviewed him for the Babcast, and I wasn't trying to be insulting. I think that was like the first major star we had on the show. I mean, we talked to Stephen first, and we talked to Pat Tallman, but then Jeffrey's like, "I'd like to introduce you to Walter Koenig," and I'm inside going. But I said to him, the thing that was really surprising about Bester was to actually see how good an actor you are.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because let's face it, Chekhov is just, he's Ensign Plywood when all said and done on the original. Yeah, right. And he's just sort of there. And Bester, oh my God. And again, he back to how great the whole show is written. The fact is that, Bester isn't an evil guy. He's just a guy who believes in what he does. And he believes that he's right. Yeah. Well, sure. I mean, and that's, but how, but at any point, that scene in Dust to Dust, I love it when he and Garibaldi, and that the chemistry between those characters is amazing. But after they cops. Right, exactly. And that scene after they've interviewed the guy, and he says, "Look, I don't mess with dust, but there's a shipment coming in," and Garibaldi turns on him and says, "So I thought you said you couldn't, you didn't have," he says, "I don't, but people like that," and he basically says, "It isn't just about my telepathy," right? And he's, it's like, yeah, they're afraid of the badge and the uniform, just like they're afraid of your badge and your uniform. And Garibaldi looks like he wants to punch him, except he knows best.
He's right.
True.
And
that's why they become best friends in season 4. Oh, what a friendship those two get to have.
Yeah.
The thing about Bester is also the thing about so many, like Naroon and so on and so forth. Handful of episodes, but they leave a long-lasting impact because you have to use them. If you don't have characters that actually make a mark, then they're not going to be remembered. They're not going to have this long-lasting impact. There's often a critique made of modern shows of, they don't have enough time. They just don't have enough time. These 10 episode seasons, blah 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 blah. Well, their character, they didn't have
Bullshit.
enough time to make them a good character. Bullshit. Naroon's in
Bullshit.
5 episodes of the show.
Yep.
And he's one of the great side characters of the show.
He
Mike, I
is,
just want to hear
yeah.
from you. Did you say any character in particular that
I
surprised
didn't.
you?
You
on
know, I
rewatch?
deeply hate Byron. So I'll
I mean,
do
that's
the other
fair.
answer to that is fucking Byron. I just fucking hate Byron. But anyway, yeah, we're kind of getting close to time though, and I think
Yeah.
I don't want to start
Yeah.
losing one by one.
Yeah,
Well, no,
I
I
hear
just
you.
I just wanted to wrap up by saying
Summer,
that
yeah.
my favorite end of series handoff is Garibaldi to number 1.
Uh-huh.
That scene where she tears everyone in the boardroom, several new ones, and then the follow-up scene later where Garibaldi's talking to the new board. It's like, if you're right, you get a bonus. If you're wrong, I'll eat you for lunch.
Well, I really appreciate that. As much as Garibaldi walked through a pile of shit the entire series, he's the one that comes out the cleanest. He's got his company. He's got Liz.
Yeah, he becomes a
he's
filthy
good.
capitalist.
Yeah,
He's fine.
he's
got
wealthy
a kid
beyond
who plays
reason.
tennis. He's
And
fine.
he's got the woman he loves. I mean,
Yeah.
he's happy. He's wealthy
Well,
in love
yeah.
and in money. He's golden.
But let's
Yeah, he's
talk
got
about this. Let's have this conversation. I want to have other conversations too, but let's have this conversation when the B5 for the first time and my newbies are done, so we can have this big ass conversation about the end of the show.
I'm really curious to hear, especially what Jessi and Nicole have to say.
Yeah.
Right, because they're coming at it from a whole different perspective. Nicole's not even a science fiction fan, right? One of the things that appealed to me about B5 when the Midnight on the Firing Line is it's like I could tell this was written by a science fiction fan, right? And so that informs how I respond to the show. And also, this was 30 years ago as opposed to today being exposed to it. And I think about something my ex once said when we watched Sleeping in Light, is she was really upset at Sheridan leaving Delenn behind. And her comment was, if he really loved her, he would have brought her along. And that never had occurred to me. Right. And, we can unpack all that. But my point is, it was a perspective that never occurred to me. I would not have gotten to that point. So I'm really excited to hear what Jessi and Nicole especially have to say, and the rest of the newbies, right, who are coming to it in a different time and place and different perspectives. And again, as we talked about the relevance, like when we first watched it in the mid-90s, we're like, oh yeah, Night Watch, right? We get it, this historical whatever. We had no idea it was looming in our future, right?
Yeah.
And they're watching it while they're living through it. And that's got to inform how they're seeing this. And I'm really, really fascinated to see what that final conversation, I don't want to say final, but that conversation at the end of it is.
I hear you. Well, that's why I started the show, because I wanted to experience B5 through somebody new's eyes, because it's been 30 years for me. So to that point, let's go ahead and wrap this up, guys. Again, this is our second time doing this. It will not be our last time. I love doing this with you all. And you are all more than welcome to come on our show anytime you want. But let's go around the horn here and do our senseless plugs. And we'll start with Mike. Plug your show, anything else you want to say, and we'll wrap it up.
No, it's just Mike. This is Gray Sector Pod. This was fun, Scott. Thanks again. Would be happy to crash the show. Also, I've been talking to Ryan about crashing Yum Yum as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a great get together. We should definitely do this again sometime.
Awesome. Ryan?
Well, you can find myself and my wife Rachel over at Yum Yum Pod or Yum Yum Podcast. We are making our way through season 4 currently. We're rewatching the show. We go in and analyze it, really break it apart. Also having a blast talking about some of the guest actors that have appeared on the show. We just did a recording for The Illusion of Truth, and there's a lot to say about the actor of Dan Randall. So you can find us on any of your social medias or platforms, podcasting wise, under Yum Yum Pod or Yum Yum Podcast.
Tim.
Yeah, I'm Tim Callender, once again, of the Babylon Podcast. And Summer and I started, almost
2006.
Yes,
Back in the
right.
day.
At the dawn of the first age of podcasting. If you really want to think
Before
about it.
social media existed.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's a whole other conversation when y'all were talking about, ugly fans and memes. Like we didn't have to do that. Anyways, yes. So Summer is brilliant and has archived all the stuff, and it's easy to go through. It's not so easy to listen to my audio connection in some of the earlier episodes, but that's a whole other story. But I'm happy to still be a part of this community. And again, Scott, yes, thanks for the invitation. And do you want us to give a list when you get to episodes that we can come in and crash?
Seriously, yeah. And you guys just you know how to message me. I have the Twitter. You guys all have it. Just message me and say, hey, I would love to talk about episode X, and I'll get you on. Javart.
So I'm Javert. I'm one of the two hosts of Who Are You, a Babylon 5 Watchcast. It's hosted by Laura and I, who really wish she could have been here, but she is sick, so she couldn't make it to this. So just sent her highs to everyone and her regards for not making it. We're finishing up season 3 and recording. I think we just put out Late Delivery from Avalon was our most recent episode we put out, which also is an episode that I unapologetically love.
It's so horrible.
It's so good.
In a good way.
Bad.
In a good way. It's so bad good.
So we are two complete strangers when we started, and we've gotten to know each other over the course of the podcast. And you can find us on your favorite podcast app. We have social media. I ignore it most of the time. But we do have a Discord server with a lot of our community. That's a lot of fun as well. So
I need that link.
Yeah, I will happily throw you that link in this chat.
Sweet.
That we're talking about getting a thing together anyway. So
Joe.
I'm Joe. I co-host the Gray Sector podcast along with Mike and Sarah, who is missing. We try to take a more sort of humorous angle. We love the show and we love talking about it and finding, both the good and the bad about it. I really enjoyed this little roundtable. Thanks for hosting us here. I'd give you social media stuff, but I don't know anything about that. So
Joe's too pure for social media. Yeah.
Too old and too pure. Yes, apparently.
Gray Sector Pod on Twitter.
And Summer.
Like Tim said, babylonpodcast.com is the website where you can find I think it's almost 300 episodes spanning 2006 to 2012, and then a few more in 2019 and a couple last year. At Babylon Podcast on Twitter is me. I will talk Babylon 5. Sometimes I'll talk Space 1999 and other old TV shows. And like I said, I'm up to talk Babylon 5 anytime you need an extra voice. Possibly one who's both passionate and slightly cantankerous.
And Brent could not stay with us because he is a noob, but also check out Babylon 5 for the first time with Brent and Jeff. And your Discord is now making noises, so I have to close it. And I'm Scott with Gray 17 podcast. Ironically, no one said Gray 17 is missing is their favorite episode.
I love that episode from Naroon. Love Naroon in that episode. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
But you can find us on your podcast app of choice or YouTube as well. And guys, it's one of the best things about doing this and having this show last for 30 years is I get to meet all these new friends. So it's been amazing talking with many of you on our show, but also talking with all of you on side chats and everything else. This has been just an amazing experience of building not only the Babylon 5 community, but the Babylon 5 content creating community. It's just been really fun. And I will just, I'll end it by saying, here's to an amazing show that so many cast, crew, writers, producers, so forth and so on made 30 years ago, but also here's to the next 30 years and what will come, because it's not going anywhere. So thanks everybody. We really do appreciate it. And I look forward to calling the league together again soon.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for putting this together.
Have a good one.
Thanks,
Real
guys.
pleasure, guys.